Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast series for financial advisors. Today's episode is Rapid Reaction, UBS Comp Plan Changes and the Impact on Advisors. I'm Louis Diamond, and this is the Diamond Podcast for Financial Advisors.
At Diamond Consultants, our mission is to help advisors live their best business life. We want every elite advisor to find exactly the right place for their business and their clients to thrive, whether it's at a wirehouse, a regional, boutique, or independent firm. As the industry's leading recruiters and consultants, we've transitioned more than $250 billion in assets under management in the past decade, and each year, 25% of transitioning advisors who manage $1 billion or more are our clients. If you'd like to talk, please feel free to give us a call at 908-879-1002. Are you a financial advisor who's curious about whether you're in the best place to serve clients or if there might be a better way to optimize your business for the future? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a new book that serves as a self-guided journey, walking you through the key steps that Diamond Consultants takes with our advisor clients, whether considering change or not. Visit diamond-consultants.com/thebook to learn more.
On November 21st, UBS Wealth Management announced sweeping changes to their advisor compensation plan. We're not here to tell advisors what they already know or to blast UBS or to pour water on their changes and what their strategies are. But we are speaking to more advisors than ever before from the firm who are really curious about the reasons why these changes are happening, what it means to them, and what they can do with this information. Yes, we are recruiters and consultants, and we do help many UBS advisors change firms. But I promise this episode is not meant to pour gasoline on the fire or to pour salt in the wound, if you will. It's more so to take a step back, give advisors some things to think about their practice in a more strategic way, to understand how these changes might stack up or compare to competitors in the industry, and then what advisors can do with this very sensitive information. So as a quick refresher or reminder, the 3 or 4 major points that advisors are talking about today is the elimination of teaming incentives. UBS was one of the, we'll say, most generous firms with encouraging teaming and allowed for aggregation of production in order for smaller or mid-sized or even large advisors to benefit from the size of their team. Now, the firm is rolling back this incentive and paying advisors at the highest grid rate on the team, rather than allowing teams to aggregate production. So whether it's a small team, it's someone on a premier team, or even if it's the largest advisor on a mega team, most folks are feeling the pinch of this change. There's also a change in the bonus structure in the way in which the cash bonus up to 4.5% of production is being allocated. Compensation was lowered on A and C share mutual funds. And similar to many other firms and UBS changes in the past, advisors that are certainly below 750,000 of production were hit the hardest as a percentage of their grid rate. But even advisors who are sub 2 million, which are very quality producers, saw their grid rate slightly reduced. So a lot of things here. What struck me about this change, and we studied these plans and have been doing so for many years, is that usually with any compensation plan, especially at a wirehouse, there's winners, there's folks that are neutral or staying the same, and there's losers. This is really the first compensation plan change that I've seen where pretty much everyone's a loser. I think best case scenario is maybe someone is in the same spot, maybe they're off by a couple $1,000s, but by and large, I think the field is looking at this more as a compensation cut than a compensation plan change, which is pretty meaningful. The second thing is, I don't think any advisor would say they're going to go hungry as a result of this change. Advisors are still very well paid. They still have a ton of upside, and they're still working at one of the best firms in the industry that enables them to grow and serve clients extremely well. But any compensation plan change or salary change in any industry is extremely emotional. So I empathize with what advisors are feeling, that they know they did the right things, they grew their business, they do right by clients, and they have unpredictability about where the next dollar of income is going to come from. So a word on this, that we know that these changes are emotional, and I feel for advisors because it doesn't feel good to know or to have confidence that every year things can change, especially when a change is this stark or severe. How it relates to others in the industry, though, I think is really important. Taking our perch as consultants to advisors at pretty much every firm, we have the ability to work with really every firm in the industry. We have a pretty good objective third-party lens into how these UBS changes now puts compensation in line with the competition. First thing I'll say is it is interesting timing that UBS in 2024 was the fourth of the major four wirehouses to announce compensation changes. Morgan, Merrill, and Wells made some changes, but pretty much kept things as is. So I was fully expecting UBS would just follow suit. Why would we do something to distance ourselves from our primary competitors and make it so that our advisors, who more than 50% of the time are going to go to one of those competitors, why are we going to put us in a different light? So definitely interesting timing on the change, given they had a lens or a vantage point into what other firms were going to do. Another point is, and this one I think is one of the most important, there's been a lot of press from UBS leadership in various publications in the last few weeks about the fact that UBS's operating margin is approximately 1/3 that of Morgan Stanley. So Morgan Stanley is much larger. They're focused on the US. They definitely have more scale. So that's not a surprise. But clearly, the firm and its shareholders and its board and its new leadership are very focused on how to improve its operating margin. So going to Business School 101, there's really 2 or 3 ways that you can improve operating margin. The first one is growth. And while UBS does a ton to help their advisors grow, takes stuff off advisors' plates, gives a great platform, and is a great brand, you can't really sprinkle fairy dust on an advisor's business and expect everyone to grow 20 or 30% per year, which is probably what it would take in order to cut the operating margin deficit. So they can keep investing in the firm, investing in the platform, but those investments take a very long time to pay off. And there's no guarantee that the growth is going to trickle down to every advisor within the network. The second way you can improve operating margin is through M&A. And there's been a lot of talk of UBS buying a commercial bank or UBS wanting to acquire a regional firm or mid-sized firm. I think this is certainly possible. And maybe this change gives them a little bit of extra firepower or cash flow to invest in deals, which ultimately could help them improve scale and grow the firm. So this could be interesting. Obviously, it depends upon who they might acquire, what the integration looks like, et cetera, but also a lot of question marks. A lot of advisors like UBS because it's boutique and because of 6,000 advisors, that's a positive, not negative. So depending upon who they acquire, does it make them much, much larger? Do they acquire a firm that doesn't have as good of a reputation as UBS does? Does the integration become a distraction on top of already trying to integrate Credit Suisse? The third way to improve operating margin, and this is where the compensation plan changes and other maneuvers are coming in, is cutting costs. It's definitely the easiest way for a firm to improve their operating margin is to cut costs. And since the financial advisory business is a human capital business, it's no surprise that by far the largest line item on UBS's income statement is advisor compensation. So I never think that the firm's going to move to salary and bonus like their Swiss counterparts, but certainly the firm took the viewpoint that either advisors were overpaid or that there were ways to rein in costs on advisor compensation and try to incentivize certain behaviors that can drive growth and ultimately help them improve their operating margin. So if you're an advisor, obviously hearing about cost cuts is not a good thing. We've heard from advisors the last year or two about other cuts to support staff compensation, to allowing additional support staff to be added, to subject matter experts being removed, expense budgets being tightened, et cetera, et cetera. So I think with all of these types of changes, my guess is most advisors would be fine. Maybe they would be a little bit upset, but they would be, I think, a little bit comfortable with a change in compensation or a cut in compensation if they had confidence that the savings would go back into the business, that it would help them develop a new technology platform, that they would expand a line of business, that they would bulk up home office professionals, that they would give advisors more of an ability to invest in their business. But that's not necessarily the case here. Comparing it to other changes we've seen from other firms, Morgan Stanley a few years ago added an advisory platform fee that got passed with clients with the express purpose, though, of building an industry-leading UMA platform. So my view is if UBS had messaged that these changes were going to go into the business and there were specific ways that it's going to help advisors, folks would be a little bit more in line with this or happy with what the changes meant. Another point on how this compares to others in the industry. My view is UBS had, before this change, if not the best or most compelling compensation plan for advisors, but certainly one of them. It definitely mattered if you had a higher length of service at UBS because there was a change a couple of years ago that rewarded folks with longevity at the firm. But even outside of that, the premier teams clause with the aggregation of production, the relatively high cash compensation, they didn't defer as much comp as other firms, put them in a really good competitive position. When I look at this, I still think UBS has one of the better compensation plans, but it puts them much more in the realm of competition with Morgan Stanley and Merrill especially. And Wells pays advisors a little bit differently, but it's probably similar to that as well. So not reason to run for the doors strictly on compensation because I think it's going to be fairly similar anywhere. So this kind of just retrofits the comp plan to make it more in line with UBS's primary competitors. One more point on how advisors should think about this. We always see compensation plan changes as a straw that breaks the camel's back. It should never be the reason that an advisor makes a change. And if someone called us, we would tell them the exact same thing. But usually there's pain points or frustrations, whether it's lowest common denominator compliance, or I don't have enough support staff, I lack capacity, technology isn't great. Fill in the blanks for your business. But a change in compensation is such an emotional item that oftentimes becomes the face of what advisors are feeling. So for some, it could be a reminder that I don't really own my business, that I'm at the whim at the firm. For others, it could be, yeah, it's fine. I don't think they're necessarily adding as much value as they used to, or they're even adding 50 cents on the dollar of value on average. But this here is the ultimate reminder that this may not be the right long-term home. So to rephrase it, never leave because of a compensation plan change, but we do often see the ultimate catalyst or event being a compensation plan change. We saw that with Merrill with its very unpopular growth grid. We've seen it pretty much with every firm. It's almost a guarantee that when a firm cuts compensation, especially in a meaningful way, that it's going to cause advisor movement. But those moves are not specifically because of this comp plan change. That just may be what gets a process started or gets a team to think about their business in a different way. Now the question is, what do I do with this information? Like I said, moving because of emotions is never recommended. If you ever do decide to make a change or you've moved before, you know that a move is disruptive, it's a risk, and it's a huge pain in the butt. So we always believe that any transition should be made from a position of strength, where you're patient, you're level-headed, where you're moving for the right reasons. So even though this is really stressful and it's coming before Thanksgiving and no advisor wants to hear this or deal with all the calls that are coming in, try to take some space from this. Let it sink in. Think about all the things that the firm's doing well for you and how you can serve clients to the best of your ability. And if after a little bit of time and space and some of the emotion, the initial emotion wears off and you still feel like you're not in the right place or there's other challenges that you're feeling, then maybe that's an invitation to look around, even if it doesn't mean committing yourself to a move, but just making sure, is the grass actually greener? Is there something that's better? Is this the right long-term home for my business, given the new information I have about how the firm is looking at advisor compensation? Another big consideration or thought exercise for advisors is UBS's Alpha program, its retire in place deal, whether Alpha Premier for larger producers to sign on to an Alpha agreement years before retiring and take some money off the table, or those considering Alpha for retirement, or maybe they have a partner considering it. This is a really good reminder of what can happen when you take your hands off the steering wheel and you no longer have full agency over your business. So I'm thinking of an advisor who's 45, who took Alpha Premier, didn't think he's ever going to move, was happy getting that 100% of his trailing 12 upfront was meaningful. But now with this change, he's going to be making a lot less in a given year and you reduce optionality. Ultimately, the value of your business is maximized if you retain optionality and you remove restrictions or limitations on your business. So not an invitation to move. I do think alpha is very compelling. And if you're close to retirement, feel like UBS is still the right firm, then it's a really elegant way to monetize your business and to transfer the clients and the responsibilities to the next generation. But if because of this or other things, it plants a seed of doubt about what the future looks like, I'd say it's an invitation to press pause, to either proactively make sure that UBS is still the right place, or take your time. And even if it means not getting the Alpha Premier deal and getting a bunch of money now, I think there's a benefit to maintaining optionality. And to me, 100% of trailing 12 as an example now is compelling. And obviously that's real money. It's life-changing money for pretty much every advisor. I still think there's a benefit to delaying, seeing how the firm's going to change over the next few years, and then either having the ability to move, having the ability to look around, or take alpha closer to retirement when you're closer to the end and perhaps these changes aren't as impactful to you. Two more questions or things to think about. I absolutely do think this is going to have a major impact on advisor movement. We've already seen, based upon the transition reports that we've done, and we'll link the most recent UBS one in the show notes here, UBS is losing teams, not at 10, 12% attrition levels, but I'd say losing more teams than they have in the past. This, I think, will just accelerate that movement. And is there potential for contagion where this is such an emotional issue? It's the water cooler talk. It's what everyone's talking about. So if you start to see really big teams, respected teams moving, and a big reason that they moved or what catalyzed the move was this change, is it going to cause many other advisors to rethink whether they're in the right spot? While this move was definitely meant to boost operating margins and to help them into the future, I do think it's going to have the consequence of many more advisors than they expected leaving. And then what does that kind of leave them with? So it's something to think about. The last thing is that everyone's, I think, thinking today is, are they going to roll this back? In the past, I believe it was a couple of years ago with a non-solicit provision that was slipped into a compensation agreement, there was so much outrage from the field that the firm actually listened to advisors and they rolled back that change. I think this has potential to be in that category, but it's such a meaningful change to profitability for UBS that I have no idea how they can put the cat in the bag. But certainly, I think many are going to wait and see if the largest teams and just all the feedback from the field, does that convince UBS to roll these changes back? I don't really know. But I think for today, my best guidance would be just breathe, take this in, think about how UBS has been serving you really well over the years, take stock of things that maybe have been bogging you down or slowing you down. And in a couple of days, couple of weeks, think back again. Does this change give you pause about what the future holds? If so, we're delighted to be a resource or answer any questions. Regardless, we're happy to talk and just share what we're hearing from advisors within the firm. We talk with the biggest teams, we talk with mid-sized teams. We have a good viewpoint across the entire firm and also can weigh it against other firms in the industry. So that's it for today. Again, keep growing your business, keep doing what your clients are paying you for. This news, it hurts for many, or it's neutral for some, but don't do anything rash.
As a financial advisor, you hold yourself to the highest standards of integrity, honesty, and credibility. You are successful because you take your professional responsibilities seriously and are dedicated to your clients. But are you living your best business life? Are your goals aligned with your firm's, or could a better option exist? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a book written with you in mind. It's a self-guided journey that walks you through the key steps that we take with our advisor clients. This strategic thought process and roadmap to professional self-discovery is designed to help you ask the right questions and think critically and objectively, whether you're considering change or not. Learn how to get your copy at diamond-consultants.com/thebook.